Imagine this. You're sitting in a courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit. And there, at the prosecutor's table, is your husband. The man you promised to love through everything. He's not here to defend you. He's here to destroy you. He swears on the Bible, but every word is poison. You know he planted those drugs. You know he made that call. You know he did it with his best friend Brian, the man sharing your bed behind your back. And the jury believes him. That was the moment Shanice Williams' life shattered. At 24, Shanice was an Atlanta social worker helping families stay together. But her husband Kobe didn't believe in her. While she planned their future, he planned her destruction with Brian Matthews, a real estate agent who wanted Kobe for himself. 12 years in prison later, Shanice didn't come home to forgive. She came to finish what they started. Hit subscribe for True Crime Journal and buckle up. What you're about to hear will change how you look at marriage forever. Shanice Williams was the kind of woman mothers prayed their sons would marry. At 24, she was a family counselor at Atlanta's Department of Children's Services, helping broken families heal, fighting for kids with no voice. She wasn't flashy. Drove a beat-up Honda, shopped at Target, called her grandmother every Sunday. She had warm eyes that lit up when she laughed and hands always reaching out to help. For 2 years, she'd been married to Kobe Williams, a 26-year-old insurance adjuster with charm that could sell ice to Eskimos. Finding a way that made women do double takes with a smile that could melt butter. They met at a Morehouse party. When he asked her to dance, she almost said no. Too handsome, too smooth. But Kobe seemed different. He listened to her dreams, brought flowers on random Tuesdays, called her parents sir and ma'am. Their wedding was small but beautiful. Shanice felt like she'd won the lottery. But marriage revealed what dating had hidden. Kobe was moody. Some days he'd talk about buying a house and starting a family. Other days he'd sit scrolling his phone like she wasn't there. When she asked what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing, babe. Just tired." He started working late. Insurance emergencies, he called them. Late-night calls in the bathroom with the door closed. When she asked who kept calling, he'd say work. Always work. The real problem was Brian Matthews. Brian had been Kobe's best friend since college. Real estate agent, BMW, designer suits. Everything Kobe was, but sharper around the edges. Brian was also gay, though he kept that lock tighter than a vault. Coming from old money and older values, being openly gay meant losing everything. But with Kobe, it was different. Soul-deep connection that made him want to burn down his life just to be real. At first, Shanice welcomed Brian. She invited him to dinner, included him in date nights, defended him when friends said he gave weird vibes. What she didn't know was Brian wasn't uncomfortable around married couples. He was uncomfortable around her specifically. She represented everything standing between him and the man he loved. Brian started small. Comments about how much time Kobe spent at home. Jokes about married life killing a man's spirit. Guys' trips that lasted longer than planned. "You know she's got you on a leash, right?" Brian would say. Kobe would laugh, but seeds were planted. Brian got bolder. Showing up unannounced, staying for dinner uninvited, making himself comfortable like he lived there. When Shanice tried setting boundaries, Brian acted hurt. "I thought we were family. I didn't know I needed an invitation." Kobe always took Brian's side. "He's going through a rough time. Cut him some slack." Shanice cut him so much slack she could have opened a rope store. What she didn't know was Brian's rough time had nothing to do with family pressure and everything to do with wanting her husband. The fights between Shanice and Kobe got worse. She wanted to save for a house. He wanted to lease a new car. Surface arguments about deeper problems neither was willing to name. Then came the night that changed everything. After a particularly bad fight about money, Kobe left angry and called Brian. 3 drinks later, years of suppressed feelings exploded in the back seat of Brian's car. The affair had begun. Within months, Brian was tired of stolen moments. He wanted Kobe to choose him, publicly and permanently. "Leave her," Brian said after wine and hotel rooms. "Just leave her." But Kobe couldn't face the truth about himself, the judgment, the loss of reputation. "Who cares what they say?" Brian pressed. "I care." That's when Brian realized, if Kobe wouldn't choose him willingly, he'd help him along. And if that meant destroying Shanice? Some casualties were necessary. The plan started with a phone call to Brian's cousin Malik, who sold pills to suburban kids with rich parents. Brian had never bought anything harder than weed, but Malik sold to anyone with cash and no questions. They met at a Waffle House off I-85. Brian slid $500 across the table, got back a plastic bag with enough cocaine and pills to ruin someone's life. "This never happened," Brian said. "What never happened?" Malik pocketed the money. The setup was simple. Shanice carried the same black leather purse everywhere, left it in her car at the gym, on the kitchen counter when she showered, hanging on her chair at restaurants. Brian just needed 5 minutes. He got his chance on a Saturday brunch. When Shanice went to the restroom, Brian excused himself for a phone call, circled back inside, and planted the drugs in her purses in her pocket. When Shanice returned, Brian was telling Kobe a joke that made him laugh genuinely, the kind that made her smile because she loved seeing her husband happy. She had no idea she was carrying enough drugs to send her to prison for a decade. That night, Brian made the anonymous call. Disguised voice, short and simple. "Shanice Williams, social worker at DFCS. She's been selling to families she's supposed to help. You'll find the stash in her purse." Meanwhile, Kobe played his part perfectly. Started fights over nothing, criticized her work, made her feel like she was failing as a wife. "You've been acting strange," he'd say with fake concern. Moody, secretive. Their fights got louder, more public, perfect cover for what came next. The trap sprung on a Wednesday morning. Shanice was driving to work when police lights hit her mirror. She wasn't speeding, but they had a warrant. "We received information about illegal substances," the officer said. She watched in confusion as they searched her car, then her purse. When they found the baggie in her inner pocket, her world collapsed. "I've never seen that before." But handcuffs were already coming out. At the station, she called Kobe. "They found drugs in my purse." "I swear I don't know what kind of drugs." His voice was prepared, not shocked. "Someone set me up. I'll be right there." But Kobe arrived with Brian, and neither looked surprised. That night, they sat at her kitchen table while Shanice tried to make sense of her nightmare. "Who would do this?" she asked through tears. Brian leaned forward with fake sympathy. "Maybe someone from work? A client who felt wronged. Or maybe," Kobe said carefully, "it's connected to families you've been working with. Some run in rough circles." "You think I'm guilty," Shanice realized. "I'm just being realistic. The evidence is damning. The evidence is planted. But who would plant it? And why?" She couldn't answer. The idea that someone hated her enough to frame her was incomprehensible. Her enemy was sitting right across from her. The prosecution painted her as a corrupt social worker exploiting vulnerable families. When Kobe took the stand for the prosecution, Shanice watched her husband destroy her with carefully crafted lies. She'd been acting different, secretive, late-night calls she'd take outside, money that didn't add up. Every word sounded like reluctant truth while being complete fabrication. The jury saw a concerned husband testifying against his wife. They didn't see the betrayal, the setup, or Brian Matthews in the gallery watching his plan unfold perfectly. Guilty on all counts. 12 years federal prison. As they led her away, Kobe was crying crocodile tears. Brian had his arm around Kobe's shoulders, playing supportive friend. But Shanice saw something else in Brian's eyes: victory. Federal prison taught Shanice lessons her social work degree never covered. The first came from a lifer named Carmen. "You got that look like somebody's coming to save you. Baby girl, ain't nobody coming." Shanice learned to survive. Kept her head down, worked in the library, stayed out of prison politics. But at night, she thought about Kobe. For 2 years, she wrote him letters. Not angry, she was too broken for anger. Just confused letters asking why he testified against her, begging him to help find who really planted those drugs. His responses were cold. Generic updates about weather and work. Nothing about love or missing her or fighting for her innocence. By year 3, letters stopped coming. She called him on his birthday. The automated system asked if he'd accept charges from a federal inmate. He declined. She tried again the next week. Declined again. That's when she understood. Kobe wasn't just failing to fight for her. He was actively erasing her. Year 4 brought a letter from her sister Keisha with neighborhood gossip and family updates. Buried in the news was information that froze Shanice's blood. Saw Kobe at the grocery store with Brian. They were shopping together, acting real domestic. Kobe's wearing a ring on his right hand now. Weird, right? A ring on his right hand. Shopping domestically. With Brian, Shanice called her college friend Maya. "I need you to find out everything about Kobe and Brian." 2 weeks later, Shanice, they moved in together 6 months after your sentencing. They live in Decatur, share bank accounts, been spotted at Pride events. Among friends, they're openly a couple. Now she understood. The setup, the betrayal, the testimony, it wasn't random. It was deliberate destruction so Kobe could live his truth without the messy complication of divorce. Brian got exactly what he wanted. Kobe, free and clear. Shanice was collateral damage. The next 8 years passed differently. Instead of clinging to hope, she studied law books, worked out religiously, made connections with women who knew how the real world worked. Most importantly, she planned. Year 10 brought a newspaper clipping. Local couple announces engagement. Kobe Williams and Brian Matthews announced their engagement after 7 years together. 7 years together, which meant they'd been together 5 years before her arrest. This wasn't post-divorce love. This was the motive for her destruction. Brian hadn't just stolen Kobe, he'd orchestrated her annihilation to do it. That night, Shanice made her decision. She wasn't getting out to rebuild or move on. She was getting out to collect what she was owed. With interest. The last 2 years, she became someone different. Still quiet, but harder underneath. Other inmates came to her for advice, recognizing something that commanded respect. Carmen pulled her aside during her final month. "You planning something when you get out? I'm planning to get my life back. That ain't the same as moving forward. Moving forward is for people who weren't deliberately destroyed by the people they loved." Carmen nodded. "Revenge is expensive. Make sure you can afford the price." October 15th, Shanice walked out carrying everything she owned in a canvas bag. 37 years old, 12 years harder, absolutely clear about what came next. She had 2 names on her list, and all the time in the world. Atlanta looked different after 12 years. New buildings, gentrified neighborhoods, technology that made her feel ancient. But some things hadn't changed. Kobe and Brian were still living their love story on her ashes. She rented a room in East Atlanta, got a job slinging coffee at a 24-hour diner, and hired Jerome Washington, an ex-cop PI who specialized in forgotten cases. "Everything you can find on Kobe Williams and Brian Matthews," she said, pawning her wedding ring for his retainer. Jerome's report painted the picture. Kobe made $75,000 as an insurance adjuster. Brian owned a successful real estate brokerage worth $1.2 million. They lived in a renovated Victorian in Candler Park, mortgage paid off. 2 cars, joint accounts, life insurance naming each other as beneficiaries. Legally married for 3 years. The photos made her hands shake. Kobe at the gym looking happy. Brian at conferences in expensive suits. Together at charity galas and pride festivals, living openly as the couple they destroyed her life to become. But the wedding photo broke her completely. Kobe in a tuxedo, smiling brighter than any expression he'd ever shown her. Brian with arms around his waist, looking like he'd won the lottery. Date stamp, December 15th, exactly 4 years after her sentencing. They'd planned their wedding while she learned to survive in federal prison. Jerome found something else. "Your ex has been seeing a therapist. Dr. Patricia Henderson. Specializes in trauma and guilt counseling." "Guilt about what?" "Word is he's been dealing with guilt about something from years ago. Something involving you." Shanice smiled for the first time in months. Kobe always did have a buried conscience. That night, she drove through Candler Park until she found their house. Beautiful, exactly what she and Kobe had dreamed about when they were young and believed in forever. Through the kitchen window, she watched 2 figures cooking dinner together, living the life they'd stolen from her. She sat there 3 hours, memorizing details. Security system sticker, spare key under the fake rock, porch light shadows that could hide someone who moved quietly. When she drove away, Shanice felt calmer than she had in 12 years. Because now she had a plan that would work exactly as intended. October 28th dawned crisp and clear. Shanice had been watching for 2 weeks, learning their Saturday routine. Brian left for tennis at 8 a.m. Kobe slept until 10, then made elaborate brunch while Brian was gone. But this Saturday would be different. She parked 3 blocks away, walked through the neighborhood in dark jeans and a black hoodie. In her pocket was the Glock 19 she'd bought from Deshaun, a man who didn't ask questions. The spare key was under the fake rock. She let herself through the back door, moving through their perfect kitchen like a ghost. Granite counters, wine fridge, refrigerator covered with vacation photos, not a single image from before her arrest. They'd erased her existence completely. She found Kobe upstairs, still asleep in Egyptian cotton sheets. "Wake up, husband," she said softly. His eyes snapped open, mouth forming a silent scream when he saw her. 12 years, she said calmly. "That's how long I've been waiting for this conversation." "Shanice, baby, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you and your boyfriend framed me. How you testified against me. How you moved on while I survived federal prison." It wasn't supposed to happen like that. How was it supposed to happen? Plant drugs, call cops, but somehow I wouldn't go to prison? His hands shook. Brian said they'd just arrest you, couldn't prove anything, let you go. Said it would scare you into divorce. And you believed that. She pulled the gun. You thought planting cocaine would end with a slap on the wrist? I was confused, in love with Brian, but loved you too. You loved me? The gun was steady. Funny way of showing it. Downstairs, a car door slammed. Brian's voice carried up. Babe, I'm back. One beat me in straight sets. Need coffee and sympathy. Footsteps on stairs. You still in bed? Lazy? I brought those croissants. He appeared in the doorway and froze. Shanice. Brian. Come in. Family reunion. He stepped inside, hands raised, brain calculating. Even facing her gun, he was thinking strategy. How much do you want? He asked. Excuse me. Money. $500,000? $1 million? Name your price. She started laughing, deep, genuine laughter that made both men flinch. You think this is about money? You think you can pay me off? Then what do you want? I want you to tell the truth. Admit what you did. Confess you planned the whole thing. Brian and Kobe exchanged glances, silent communication from years of partnership. Okay, Brian said slowly. We'll call police right now, tell them everything. But Shanice had learned to read people inside. She knew the difference between surrender and buying time. You're lying, she said. We're not. You're lying the same way you lied 12 years ago. She raised the gun. 2 quick shots, Brian first, center mass. Then Kobe, lunging for the nightstand. The house went silent except for blood pooling on expensive floors. Shanice stood there, looking at the men who'd stolen her life. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no regret. Just emptiness where 12 years of rage used to live. She walked downstairs, found their landline, dialed 911. I need to report a shooting. 2 men are dead. I killed them. I'll be waiting on the front porch. Shanice sat on the porch steps, hands on her knees, gun beside her, waiting with prison-taught patience as police cars filled the street. I'm the one who called this in, she told the first officer. Shanice Williams. I killed Kobe Williams and Brian Matthews. At the station, she told Detective Morrison everything. The 12-year-old setup, planted drugs, false testimony, the affair that motivated it all. Her investigation after release. The morning's confrontation. She slid across a folder containing Jerome's findings plus her own discoveries. Bank records showing Brian's suspicious cash withdrawals. Phone records connecting him to dealers. Photos of him and Kobe together during her trial. Why didn't you take this to authorities instead of vigilante justice? Because authorities sent me to prison in the first place. Because statute of limitations had run out. Because rich gay men don't go to prison for decade-old crimes against poor black women. Investigative journalists found evidence supporting every claim. Brian's laptop contained encrypted files documenting the frame-up, emails detailing the plan, research into drug penalties, timeline for planning evidence. Brian had documented his crime like a serial killer keeping trophies. The Georgia Innocence Project secured posthumous exoneration of her original conviction. The DA's office vacated her record under massive pressure. But none of that helped her current charges. Her trial 8 months later built around delayed justice. Defense attorney Marcus Johnson argued, this isn't about whether Shanice killed 2 men, she did. This is about what drove a woman with no criminal history to walk into that house with a gun. This is about 12 stolen years and whether system failure justifies taking justice into your own hands. The prosecution painted revenge over justice. But evidence of the original frame-up was overwhelming, and Shanice's testimony compelling, not remorseless killer, but woman pushed past breaking points. 6 days of deliberation. Verdict: guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Not murder, not self-defense. Middle ground acknowledging both wrongs. 15 years, parole possible in 8. Ms. Williams, the judge said, what was done to you is unconscionable. 12 years stolen based on lies. However, our system cannot function if individuals take justice into their own hands, no matter how justified. I sentence you with a heavy heart. Understanding true justice was probably impossible from the moment those drugs were planted. As they led her away, Shanice looked back at supporters holding signs, justice delayed is justice denied, and Shanice did nothing wrong. But she felt something she hadn't in 12 years, peace. She'd told her truth. The world heard it. Kobe and Brian would never destroy another innocent person. Sometimes, that was as close to justice as the world provided. So what do you think? Was Shanice a cold-blooded killer consumed by revenge? Or a woman who finally fought back against a system that failed her completely? After 12 years for crimes you didn't commit, watching your destroyers live happily on your ashes, what would justice look like to you? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if this moved you, and subscribe to True Crime Journal for stories that'll make you question everything about right and wrong. Where are you watching from today? Let me know. I love connecting with our true crime family worldwide. Because sometimes the most important conversations start with the hardest truths. Stay safe out there.